You ever feel like there's something inside of you that no one else can touch? Something hidden, something powerful, but also something you can't explain. You can feel it like a hum in the background of your existence. This deep, undeniable sense that you're different, that you were chosen. But what if I told you that being chosen comes with knowledge so profound, so intense, that it can never be fully shared? That's what we're talking about today, the dark secrets chosen ones can never reveal. Listen closely, because this isn't something you'll hear anywhere else. Most of the world is asleep, living day to day without ever questioning the deeper truths of existence. They're caught in the grind, distracted by the noise and perfectly content with the surface level of reality. But you've always known there was more. You felt it. The whispers from the universe, the subtle signs, the synchronicities that can't just be coincidence. You've been called to something greater, and if you're watching this right now, it's because you've started to wake up. But here's the thing, with that awakening comes a responsibility, and with that responsibility comes certain truths that you'll never be able to fully explain. The first dark secret, it's the knowledge that reality is not what it seems. I know you've probably heard that before, but let's break it down to a deeper level. We're not just talking about understanding that the world is full of illusions, we're talking about seeing behind the veil. You've begun to realize that the events, the people, the very structure of life itself is built on layers that most people never even suspect exist. You can see how energies influence outcomes, how thoughts shape reality, and how the unseen forces move through everything around us. But how do you explain that to someone who's still asleep? How do you tell someone that their very perception of reality is limited, that their beliefs, their fears, their desires are being manipulated by forces they can't even perceive?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You can't put it into words that they'll understand. And that, my friend, is the first secret you'll carry. You'll walk through life knowing that the reality most people believe in is just a shadow of the truth. But you won't be able to wake them up, at least not directly. You have to let them come to it in their own time, in their own way. And that's hard, isn't it? Because you want to help them, you want to share what you know. But you also know that not everyone is ready. Not everyone can handle the truth. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to tell someone about an experience you've had, something deeply spiritual or mystical, and you could see in their eyes that they just didn't get it? They might have smiled, nodded, even pretended to understand, but deep down you knew they couldn't grasp it. That's part of the burden of being chosen. You see things others can't. You understand truths that are veiled to most. And that brings with it a loneliness, doesn't it? A sense that no matter how much you share, there will always be parts of you, big, important parts that others can never touch. But that loneliness, that isolation is also part of your power, because it forces you to go inward. It forces you to rely on your own inner knowing, to trust your instincts, to develop a relationship with the unseen forces that guide you. And that's the second dark secret. Chosen ones are never truly alone, even though it often feels that way. You've begun to realize that there are energies, entities, forces, call them what you will, that walk with you, that guide you, that shape your path. You can feel them, can't you? In the quiet moments, when you're still, when you're centered, there's a presence. Maybe it's subtle, maybe it's profound, but you know it's there. But again, how do you explain that? How do you tell someone that you're in communication with forces beyond the physical without sounding crazy? You don't. You keep it to yourself. You learn to trust it, to work with it. But you also learn that some things are meant to remain unspoken. Not because they're shameful, but because they're sacred. And that's the second burden you'll carry, knowing that you are guided by forces most people will never acknowledge. And yet, for all their power, these forces remain invisible to the world around you. Let me ask you, do you trust those forces? Do you trust the guidance you're receiving, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it leads you in directions you didn't expect? Because that's another part of the journey. Trusting the unseen. Trusting that, even when you feel lost, even when the world around you seems chaotic, there's a deeper plan unfolding, one that most people will never even notice. So here we are, diving even deeper into the mysteries. If you're still with me, it means you're ready for the next layer. The third dark secret chosen ones can never reveal is perhaps the hardest to carry. It's the weight of knowing. The weight of understanding things about the nature of existence that most people will never even glimpse. You've started to see the threads that connect everything. You understand that every action has a ripple effect, that every thought sends out waves into the universe. You know that there's a deeper order to the chaos of life, that what seems random isn't random at all. But how do you live with that knowledge? It's a delicate balance, isn't it? On the one hand, you want to live fully, to experience life in all its richness. But on the other hand, you know too much. You've seen behind the curtain. You can no longer fully immerse yourself in the illusions that most people live in. You can't unsee the patterns, the energies, the forces at play, and that changes everything. It changes the way you interact with people, the way you make decisions, the way you move through the world. But here's the thing, you can't tell people about this. Not really. Because the moment you try to explain it, it loses its power. It's like trying to describe the color red to someone who's been blind their whole life. You can use words, you can paint pictures, but they'll never fully grasp it. And that's frustrating, isn't it? Because you want to share what you've seen, you want to help others wake up, but you've learned that not everyone is ready. In fact, most people aren't. Let me ask you, how do you handle that? How do you navigate a world where you see the deeper truths, but you can't fully share them? Do you feel isolated? Do you feel like you're living in two worlds at once, the world of the everyday and the world of the unseen? That's part of the burden of being chosen. You straddle both worlds, but you never fully belong to either. And that can be lonely. But it can also be empowering, because it means you have access to knowledge most people will never have. It means you can move through life with a sense of purpose, a sense of direction that others can only dream of. And yet, this knowledge comes with a cost. The cost is that you'll never be able to fully explain your experience to anyone else. You'll never be able to fully share the depth of what you know. And that's okay, because part of the journey of being chosen is learning to be okay with not being understood. It's learning to carry your knowledge with grace, without needing validation from others. It's learning to trust that, even though you can't fully explain it, the truth you've discovered is real. But here's the deeper question. Can you be at peace with that? Can you accept that you'll never be fully understood, that you'll always carry secrets that others can't comprehend? Because that's the third dark secret. The weight of knowing is heavy, but it's also liberating. It frees you from the need for external validation. It allows you to walk your path with confidence, knowing that you're aligned with something greater, something deeper, something most people will never even touch. Now we've reached the final secret, the one that ties everything together, the one that, once you understand it, changes everything. The fourth dark secret is this: being chosen doesn't mean you're exempt from the challenges of life. In fact, it often means the opposite. It means you'll face tests, trials, and obstacles that others won't. Why? Because you're being prepared for something greater. You're being shaped, molded, refined. The challenges you face aren't random. They're part of your initiation. They're part of what it means to be chosen. You see, being chosen isn't about being special in the way most people think. It's not about being better than others. It's about being called to serve. It's about being given gifts, knowledge, and power not for your own benefit, but for the benefit of others. And that's the final secret. Chosen ones are here to serve, but they can never fully reveal the depth of their service. You'll find yourself in situations where you're called to act, to guide, to heal, without ever being acknowledged for it. You'll do the work, but you'll do it in the background, in the shadows, without recognition. And that's the hardest part, isn't it? Because as human beings, we crave acknowledgement. We want to be seen, to be appreciated. But as a chosen one, you've come to understand that true service is done in silence. The most powerful work you do will never be recognized by the world. It will never be celebrated or rewarded. And that's the final burden. You'll carry the knowledge that your greatest contributions will often go unnoticed. But let me ask you this, can you accept that? Can you embrace the fact that your role as a chosen one is not about being seen, but about serving a higher purpose? Because once you accept that, everything changes. You no longer need validation. You no longer need approval. You're free to walk your path, knowing that you're doing the work you were called to do, even if no one else ever knows. And that, my friend, is the ultimate secret of the chosen ones. We carry the truth, we walk between worlds, and we serve in silence. And in that silence we find our true power. So far, we've uncovered 3 dark secrets that chosen ones carry. The burden of seeing reality for what it truly is, the loneliness of connecting with forces unseen, and the weight of knowing truths that can never fully be shared. But now we've come to the final part of this journey, the last secret that wraps everything together, and this one might be the hardest to live with. It's the secret of the silent power you wield. You see, the most profound impact you have on the world is often invisible. You may never know the true extent of how you've influenced others, how your energy, your actions, and your presence ripple through the lives of those around you. This is the 4th dark secret. Your power as a chosen one is not in what you do or say, but in how you are. It's in the energy you carry. It's in the way you show up in the world, even when no one is watching. Let's pause for a moment. Think about the people you've encountered in your life, those who have deeply impacted you without ever saying a word. Maybe it was a teacher, a stranger on the street, or someone you met briefly, but who left a lasting impression. They didn't need to tell you they were special. You just felt it. You felt their energy, their presence, and it shifted something in you. Now, realize this, you are that person for someone else. Probably for many people. And most of the time, you'll never know it. This is the silent power you carry as a chosen one. It's the ability to influence and shape the world around you without needing to force anything. You don't need to convince people of your truth. You don't need to shout from the rooftops about what you know. Your very being is enough. Your presence, your energy, your alignment with the deeper truths of the universe, it's enough to change the world. And that's something most people will never understand, which is why it remains a secret. You'll walk through life quietly changing everything, and yet, on the surface, it may seem like nothing is happening. But how do you live with that? How do you reconcile the fact that your greatest impact will often go unnoticed even by you? This is where faith comes in. Not faith in the traditional sense, but a deeper, more personal kind of faith. It's the trust that what you're doing, who you're becoming, is exactly what the world needs, even if you can't see the results. It's trusting that every interaction, every thought, every moment you spend aligned with your purpose is sending ripples out into the universe, ripples that will eventually come back in ways you can't predict. Let me ask you, can you live with that kind of faith? Can you trust in your invisible impact even when the world doesn't acknowledge it? Because that's what being chosen is all about. It's about knowing that your power doesn't come from recognition, from titles, from external success. It comes from within. It comes from the alignment you've cultivated with the deeper truths of existence. And here's the paradox. The more you accept that your power is silent, the more powerful you become. The less you need validation from others, the more you step into your true role as a chosen one. You stop worrying about whether people understand you, whether they see what you're doing, whether they get the full picture. You start living from a place of deep inner knowing, of trust in your path, and that's when your presence begins to affect the world in ways you can't even imagine. But there's another layer to this. The more you embrace your silent power, the more you begin to realize that the people who are meant to be impacted by you will find you. You don't need to chase them. You don't need to convince them. They will be drawn to your energy, to your presence without you having to say a word. This is the nature of true power. It doesn't seek out attention. It simply is. And in its quiet presence, it transforms everything around it. So let me ask you one final question. Can you let go of the need to be seen, to be understood, to be acknowledged, and simply trust that your presence is enough? Can you live with the knowledge that your power is not in what you do, but in how you are? Because that's the final dark secret. The chosen ones are not here to be recognized. They're here to serve, to heal, to guide, and to transform the world from the inside out, often without anyone ever knowing. This is the ultimate truth of being chosen. Your power is silent, your impact is invisible, and yet it is profound beyond measure. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to show the world what you know. You simply need to be. To live in alignment with the deeper truths you've come to understand, and to trust that, in doing so, you're fulfilling your purpose. And that's it. That's the final secret. The chosen ones walk through life quietly, carrying the weight of truths they can never fully reveal, influencing the world in ways that will never be acknowledged, and yet they're at peace with it, because they know that their power is not in what they say or do, but in who they are. And that's enough. That's more than enough. Now, as I bring this to a close, I want to leave you with this thought: you are enough. Your presence, your journey, your silent impact, it's enough. You don't need to seek validation. You don't need to explain yourself. The world may never fully understand you, but that doesn't matter. You are chosen. You are powerful. And that power exists in ways that are beyond what words can express. So, as you walk through life, remember this: the greatest secrets are the ones we carry in silence. And the greatest power is the one that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. And now you've heard it all, the dark secrets that chosen ones can never reveal. It's a journey of solitude, of silent service, and of profound inner strength. But it's also a path of deep fulfillment, because you know, even if no one else does, that you are walking the path you were meant to walk.